listening to Answers for the Family with Alan Cardoze and Matt Polachek, only on LA Talk Radio.
Greetings to all of you listening around the world, and a warm welcome as we bring you another edition of the Answers for the Family radio show. I'm your host, Alan Cardoze, and if you're a regular listener, thank you once again for joining us. And if this is your first time, please make yourself at home as we bring you Answers for the Family. Now, each week, this show will address issues such as locating a runaway teen, family crisis intervention, building self-esteem, dealing with addictions, and so much more. Now, having over 30 years' experience working with families in crisis, I've been fortunate to meet and work with some of the top professionals in many of the helping fields and skilled authors who are working to make this world a better place for all of us. Now, I'm thrilled to have again as my guest co-host, Gabriella Von Ray. Now, for those of you that didn't hear our show a few weeks ago when she was our guest and our topic was kindness, Gabriella was adopted from a Pakistani orphanage at 3 by a Dutch family. Raised in Holland, she learned about bullies and racism the hard way, but she refused to remain a victim. Instead, she used understanding and empathy to defeat fear and mistrust. Now, Gabriella has been seen by millions on national TV. She's been on Dr. Phil, ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, just to name a few. And she speaks at school assemblies in major corporations across the United States, spreading her messages. Let's pick up our standards. Let's pick up our values. And her slogan is, we as a society of people have dropped the ball on human kindness. Will you help me pick it up? Gabriella, I'm so happy you could join us again for today's topic, which is You Got This, a lifelong cheerleader's guide to owning your truth, creating a fulfilling life, and reaching your highest potential as a modern mom. Gabriella, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Alan, for having me. And I could not welcome this topic more than You Got This, because it's exciting. And I am so excited that Ali is actually in the studio with us.
So, yeah, as am I. So I want to share with everybody a little bit about our guest. She is known as the work-life balance parenting expert. Ali Loprete founded the widely popular ourmilkmoney.com, the largest online search directory for parents in the world. It's a nonprofit organization, and Our Milk Money lists the products and services of thousands of self-employed parents in more than 300 cities across the globe. In addition to inspiring a movement of work-at-home parents who support each other with their own purchasing power, Ali has created an abundance of opportunity for parents who are seeking alternatives to expensive daycare and long hours away from home. And I can certainly tell you that not so much the daycare, but the long hours I can certainly relate to. Now, nationally recognized as a dynamic public speaker, Ali was the host of the radio program This Little Parent Stayed Home on iHeartRadio with more than 6 million listeners. It is on this program that Ali diligently chipped away at her mission to bring 1 million parents home through self-employment and entrepreneurship. Now, known for her hilarious rants, real-life business strategies, and infectious energy, Ali helped challenged career parents deal with the overwhelming prospect of starting a new business while running a household, while creating a haven where parents across the nation continue to connect and thrive. Currently, Ali hosts her new weekly broadcast, Dramatic Impact with Ali, an inspirational and informative live show for those who are passionate about leadership, activism, and making positive contributions to the world, which is also on iHeartRadio. Her first book was recently published by Motivational Press, You Got This, a lifelong cheerleader's guide to owning your truth, creating a fulfilling life, and reaching your highest potential as a modern mom. Ali, welcome to Answers for the Family.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Well, it is our pleasure as well. I got a chance to go through the book, and it's just phenomenal from the standpoint of it is constantly building hope, building positive input that I think anybody can enjoy and can benefit from, not just moms.
I'm so glad that you said that. It's amazing how many people are my readers who have reached out to me who have said, I'm not a mom, I'm a dad, or I'm not a mom, I'm a man who doesn't have children. And they have found that it's really lifted them up as well. And that was my goal when I wrote it, was I really believe in human potential, and that I feel that most of us are not reaching it because we have been pushed down so much. So I'm glad that you got a lot out of it.
Yeah, and I felt that it also really goes back to that point of parents being involved, being much more involved in their children's life. And something I've spoken on the show in the past about is that I was a room dad. And I was a room dad when there weren't room dads. You know, I was filling out forms that said room mom, and I was like, I don't care, I'll just fill it out.
Right.
And one of the stories that really touched me was I was in charge of reading. That was usually the thing I was doing with the kids. And one of the times we would set up outside if it was at all possible, because we're in Southern California, it's so beautiful. And so I have my group of readers, and one of the boys said, excuse me, Mr. Cardoze, I'd like to know, what does my dad have to do to be retired like you? And I went, what makes you think I'm retired? Well, you seem to always be here, so I assume that you're not working and stuff. And I said, well, no, actually I do. Why do you say that? And he said, I never see my dad. He said, my dad leaves for work before I get up in the morning, and he doesn't get home until about the time it's just time to tuck me into bed. Yeah. And I just wish that he would spend more time with me, or that I could spend more time with him. And that, it reinforced to me that I needed to keep making that such a priority, to be a room dad and to be involved in every aspect of their life. And that's what I got reading your book, was this is just reminding all of us, be involved with your children's life at whatever level you can, which is why I love the fact of bringing more people home to work from home, so that they can be there with them.
Well, actually, that's a great point that you bring up. But, I think it's very important that I address that my goal is to never shame anyone if they have to work. There are single moms that have to work 2 or 3 jobs. There's so many different situations, and a lot of times we get pressure from our kids that say, why can't you be home like her? And I remember we had next door neighbors that had a daughter that moved that said, I wish my mom was home. And I said, the grass is always greener, because my son is like, why do you have to be here all the time? So and I think that's important to know that it really isn't. My goal isn't necessarily to shame you for being limited in what you have to do for your children. But the real reason that I wanted to empower moms and dads to be home with their kids is because I knew that they wanted to be. And I think that being personally, joyfully self-fulfilled is the most important thing. It should be our number one goal. You really have to take care of your mindset. You really have to take care of your self-love, your self-health. And if you are feeling anxious because you're never home, because you got to put food on the table, and you're giving more of a priority to an employer that doesn't value your loyalty. This was what I was running into a lot. This is what I ran into when I was working. And so I realized, you know what? Forget that. I'm going home, and I'm going to find a way to make it work. And I realized that there were so many other moms and dads that wanted the same thing. And so my goal was to bring parents home who wanted to come home. Sure. There are some parents who say, no, I'm better. I'm a better mom when I'm not around my kids. And to be honest, I'm at that. My kids are tweens now, and right now I'm like, yeah, I need away from you guys. But I really think that for moms, I'm less of a parent expert and more of a parent advocate. There's a lot of advocates for kids, and I love that. But not a lot of people are advocating for the moms and the dads, and that is a thankless job, and it's been wearing us down. And my goal was to really change the dialogue and change the conversation, and really show that moms and dads are to be seen as valuable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And when you just said about yours being tweens, I was a room dad until such time that they got to middle school, and then they had a talk with me. Sorry. Dad,
go away.
Can you not come to school every day? Okay.
Yeah, because they find it embarrassing.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, but I got it, and that was the time to step away.
Yeah.
which is fine. And no, and I didn't in any way think that as I read the book that it was shaming anybody, nor did I feel that there was any judgment in regards to the father that boy was referring to.
Sure.
I completely respect the fact that this guy was working really, really hard to provide for his family.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you're giving them an alternative. Mm-hmm. And maybe he picks up that book and reads that and goes, wait a minute, I'm smart. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I can do this from home and do both.
Exactly. And that's really what I wanted to do. But it's even to go on top of that, it's there's more to it in that we need to, going back to your mission, really seeing one another and valuing one another and being kind to one another and having empathy for one another. And we've gone backwards in that respect, and I'd like to bring that back.
But I really feel that we went backwards in that because I feel that we're so stressed out day after day with trying to make it in our jobs, trying to keep it up. And then we do lose sight because by the time we're home, we're so tired. We can't help them with the homework. Usually they take something out of the fridge. It's hard. But it really, really is. What do you feel is the biggest challenge that parents face today?
I think that parents now are under more scrutiny than ever before. I think we're under the microscope. I think that the biggest anxiety is not necessarily the money or the being far away from home. I think it's that we feel the constant judgment of others. And this was a lot of in my research and a lot of just observing other moms and having a lot of conversations with moms. I realized their biggest fear was that somebody was going to judge them for doing it wrong. And my book really talks about this a lot because when I was a new mom, I was really scrutinized and I was really shamed for not doing it right. And I didn't know because I was a first-time mom. My son was a bit of a handful, and I didn't realize that it wasn't my fault until, kids come out and, with their own personalities. And I didn't realize this until my other son came out and he was a dream. And, and I'm parenting them the same way, but I was really shamed. I had a breakdown 8 years ago, and this was largely in part due to being a woman who women are accommodating. They want to accommodate. They're constantly apologizing for things that they shouldn't be apologizing for. And they make themselves responsible for other people's comfort level. And when you have a child who is loud and crazy, as a mother, you can make the choice to not bring them to a library. You can make them the choice to not bring them to a fancy restaurant. But sometimes you have to bring them on an airplane. And when the entire airplane is angry at you because you're not keeping your child quiet and somebody says something stupid to you like, well, did you ever try asking them to be quiet? You just want to go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. But I've already tried 10 things that haven't worked. And the added anguish, the added anxiety that it is your responsibility to keep everybody around you comfortable with your child, I think really makes it much more difficult for us to do our job as parents and actually do a good job being a parent and caring for our children. So our parenting has become less about doing what's right for our children and more about appeasing society.
Absolutely. You just said something that's near and dear to my heart because it's one of my topics. I actually have a talk that says, women, please stop apologizing for who you are.
I do it all the time.
But all of us, I think at a certain age, because when I see the younger generation between 20 and 30, they do it less and less.
Yes, good.
And I'm very grateful.
Our mentors, they are leading the way for us.
They are actually really mentoring.
When I started coaching moms, one of the things that I would say to them is I would ask permission to call them out every time they said, I'm sorry. Yeah. And one of the things was that it really empowered them. I would say, I'm going to call you out on something. Stop saying you're sorry for being a mother who is working hard and you have a child screaming in the background when you're on a conference call because you're probably working 10 times harder than most people for a fraction of the paycheck. So stop apologizing. Yeah.
But isn't this society that puts, because you talked about judgment, and I feel, and I would love your opinion, I feel that people don't understand, men or women, the difference between an opinion and a judgment.
Well, I have so much to say about this.
Okay,
one of the things that most people don't realize is that I just got accepted to grad school, and it's in the Masters of Communication Management. And I'm so passionate about finding new dialogue, new verbiage, new ways for us to become better and to help each other become better. And this is, I'm going to get emotional about this. There's so much that we have to do as a society. We are in a constant defensive state. If somebody says to us, "You're racist," well, our inclination is to prove that we're one of the good guys, rather than realize that there's something that we can do that is better. We can all be better. We can all make a conscious effort to allow people to call you out on something, to say, "Excuse me, sir, I really appreciate what you have to say, but you just interrupted her and I want to hear the rest of what she had to say." That's something that, we're not calling that man a misogynist right there. We're just sort of allowing him to know that he may be dealing with an unconscious bias that he's not aware of. We all have unconscious biases. But you said something about really seeing people, about really, how do we not be so angry at people and judgmental? And I was going to tell you a quick story. On the way here, I was running late. I was angering a driver because I was, he had all this street in front of him. Yeah. And one of the things that I have practiced and trained myself is to realize that, we hate all the drivers in LA until we see them in person. These are the same people. We don't make that connection. Mm-hmm. But these are the same people that we have wonderful conversations. And I love LA. I love LA people. I love how open-minded they are. But they seem like real jerks on the road, and yet they're the same people we see when we're out and about and we're waving and we're in the grocery store where people are kind. And so this guy, he flipped me off, and I thought, that guy has a family and he has friends who love him and appreciate him and see his good qualities and they know that he's valuable, and he hid himself behind this finger. That had I not practiced this, I wouldn't have seen this finger that is attached to a human being who, he was angry at me, whatever, and he was being short-sighted, but I refused to let that make me short-sighted.
But that's what I always say, this reactiveness, sorry, Alan, this reactiveness is automatic almost. It's part of our makeup, our DNA. Yeah. And we do not teach this, neither in the classroom, neither later in life, not in college, nowhere have I ever been taught that. It's a lesson I learned when I was 11, that you can spend your whole life being reactive, but one of the beautiful things about communication is it's not about you.
Yes.
And we forget that.
That's exactly
it's not
right.
about you. So the flipping of the finger is not about you. This man is stressed out of his, I don't even know the word in English, but he's really stressed. A lack of words here. Truly stressed. And he's stressed because we are pushing on him all the things that he has to accomplish in 8 hours. And he is not a perfect man, but we want him to be.
And one of the things that I'm really passionate about doing, especially in grad school, is to really rehumanize the planet, really start to see each other as human beings again, really, and that's scary because it's change, and a lot of us feel that making ourselves more vulnerable is going to weaken us, but I don't feel that vulnerability is weak. It makes us much stronger. I really study the works of Brene Brown, vulnerability, rehumanizing the planet, and all of this makes me so passionate. I can always see the other side. I can always see the heart in people, but I don't always have the words to be able to help people to do it as well, and that's really what I'm passionate about learning.
Right.
Okay. Well,
I was going to say, and you bring up a great point, because it's part of it is also we don't know what they're going through right now, and that's one of the things that we try to teach. And interesting, tomorrow my son is doing a training for my company, and one of the issues that we're going to talk about is just that. What are they going through right now? You're going into a situation and you're dealing with someone who is now being taken to, let's say, drug rehab or to a special school or something. Put yourself in their position and understand they're going through something. So when they react in a negative way towards you, think about what they're going through, or ask them what they're going through. So in your situation, the guy in the car that's slipping off the finger, well, you know what? Maybe he just found out that his mother was diagnosed with a painful disease.
And that's enough. Just the possibility of that being the actual scenario is enough.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm saying, but instead, and again, I think it's pushed a lot through the media and through politics and everything else, that if you can focus on something that's negative, then you jump on it.
Absolutely. And I think that, I think politically and media has really, they've created a beast here. Yes. But I will say that if the world was not the way it was right now, people are rising up. They're finding their voice in ways that they didn't know they had. They're speaking out for others who still don't feel that they have their voice. I'm incredibly moved and excited about what is rising up right now, to be quite honest.
Me too.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. In your book, Got This, how for everyone who's listening, including myself here, is how do you teach men and women? How do you teach anyone not to be so hard on themselves, and to have that empowerment of you got this?
Well, it sounds strange, but I really teach that you have to be selfish. You have to really put yourself first all the time. If you are constantly looking at your happiness and your joyful look on the world, and you're constantly nurturing that, and I'm kind of a mental health nut, and part of the reason is because believe it or not, I suffer from depression. Not every day. 90% of the time, I'm pretty happy, but if I'm not careful, then I can slip into that, and I think a lot of leaders and speakers do, but they don't talk about it because of that shame. So because I had to be so on top of my mental health, I realized how important and necessary it was that I always put myself and my needs first, even ahead of my children. That's very hard for women to do. But I realized that if I wasn't operating at my full potential, then my children weren't going to be getting a good, sound parent. I wasn't going to be able to really give them what I needed if I wasn't mentally there. So if everybody is making themselves responsible for their own happiness, not, I'm going to be selfish, you need to make me happy. Some people get that wrong. But I'm going to set whatever you're going through aside for a moment. I can help you in a minute, but I'm going to deal with myself first so I can get myself into that space. And You Got This really does suggest that anyone can do this. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter what kind of hardship, what kind of abuse, what you've been through.
But how do you set the boundaries? Even I have difficulty with that. I've been called selfish because I put myself. Sometimes I say no because I just need that time.
Every time something goes wrong, every time it doesn't work out the way you had hoped, that's an opportunity for you to figure it out from there. So you're going to fail. In fact, a lot of what I talk about in the book is the importance of welcoming failure. And once you get into that space of believing and trusting that you have what it takes to handle failure and know how to use it to move forward so that you never have to go through that again, then you get into this space of like, yay, a challenge! Woo, I'm going to grow! And a lot of people get really anxious from challenges, but you can reset that mindset.
Absolutely.
Now, and you bring up a great point in regards to it. It's sort of like on the airplanes, put your own mask on first, right?
It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's used a lot.
Yeah.
I use it too.
Yeah, but I think with what Gabriella is bringing up is that for some of us who maybe have been identified as a helper bee, in other words, it's sort of what we have become. How much of that is the people have now gotten used to us being in that role, and because we're in that role, when we try to step out of it, how much is that we're actually it's changing them,
right,
and the way that they're seeing us. So how do we do that in a slower fashion to make the change to where they're not so reliant on us? Because in essence, we're trying to get them to also be more reliant on themselves.
Okay, so I don't have the exact answer to that, but I will tell you that there is an answer, and this is what I'm truly excited about. Now that I'm older, I remember what it was like when my children, oh, believe me, I have stories, nightmare stories, and I remember seeing moms, that would hand out the cards with the gummy bear saying, I'm so sorry if my child, and at first I thought, oh, what a clever thing, and then I thought, why are we doing this? Why are we apologizing and we're still making ourselves accommodating to everybody? Now that I'm older, and this is sort of my mission and one of the things that I'm instilling in so many other moms, now that I'm older, when I get on an airplane, I look for a mother who has children, and I see that panic in her eyes, and I give her either some words of comfort, or I give her a knowing look that says, I've got your back. And there's a concept known as bringing back the village. You know, years ago, there were mothers that would say, give me the baby and you go do what you have to do. And we all just sort of did that for one another. No questions. Give me the baby. I'll help. We just jumped in for one another, and that stopped somehow. So now I'm starting to bring that back a little. When I see a mother, I go, I got your back. You let me know. And if anyone, I know that she's in a mental state that is constantly, you know, thinking of her child and thinking of, is he ruining things? Is he, you know, and other people who are angry. And I know that I'm in a much more relaxed state now because I don't have that pressure. So I kind of have her back, and then I'm looking at people like, you leave her alone. You leave her alone. It's not her responsibility to keep for your, you know, to keep you comfortable. You know, so more and more women are doing that for one another, and it's going to build momentum. So in answer to your question, it's hard to say what you personally can do when you have young children. The only thing that I can say is trust that women and other people are learning to have your back, and put that into the momentum of when you get to that space, you'll also pay it forward.
Well, it's more than just women as far as having their back, because I'll share a story with you, is that I fly a lot, and so I'm on planes a lot. And one of the times in which I was on, I think it was like transcontinental, so I mean it was going to be a really, really long flight. And as the person the woman is coming on, she's got her baby with her, and then she's pulling along the 3-year-old behind her. Yeah. And she comes in and she looks.
Don't you automatically feel tense when you hear this? Yeah.
Well, and I'm seated in the bulkhead, and so she looks to the right in the bulkhead, and the person that's sitting there on the aisle goes, oh, God, because she's looking into there. And and it looks like she's going to cry. And she glances this way, and I also had 2 seats open. And I said, if they're not full, why don't you just come over here? And she went, okay. And so she sat over there. And I played with the 3-year-old because she was dealing with the baby, and which was fine. I love small children. It was great. We had a great time. It's a long flight. And we're walking off the flight. Well, now the 3-year-old went to sleep, and the baby is asleep by the time we're getting off. And so I went, no, that's okay, I'll take him. So I carry him off. And the look on her husband's face on the other end, he's looking and he goes, who's he? And she goes, trust me, honey, he was only help, okay? He was just helping.
Well, and that's wonderful. And it's so great that you thought to do that you're learning to recognize this person needs my help, I'm available, and it makes you feel good, too.
Absolutely.
It lifts up your spirit. But what I do have to also point out is that person who went, you know, why are we not holding those people accountable for the discomfort that they're giving to mothers? I mean, because we feel that pressure, we feel that sigh, and it makes us anxious, but we don't hold those people accountable for their comfort level. So there is sort of recognizing, you know, where are we placing our values? Why are we valuing that person's comfort level more than a mother who's raising tomorrow's future?
But I think I know the answer is that when we tell that person, you know, come on, your body language is not perfect, they actually say, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people, this is a part that I've studied about communication, are not aware that their body language and tone speaks more than the words, the real content of the words.
You're right. You're right.
And that's why, because I have actually tried to say,
and
please
there's
don't
people
do that.
we're not going to change.
But they don't know. No, actually, I have had a few.
And then there's people who will change, right?
There are cases that they said, did I do that? How terrible. I think it's so automatic. I didn't know I sighed. I didn't know I rolled our eyes. And the best person to ask this, and you're not going to want to, Allie, is your tweens at home. Because they do it. They are the champions. Champion tweens and teens in body language. And as a mother or father, we all know it.
Yeah.
They're asking us
all
to go
goes
out.
into the unconscious bias. You know, it all goes into, and we really do have to make a decision personally to say, I'm ready and willing to be called out. You know, and I think that once we set that emotion as the trend, more and more people are going to jump on, and they're going to say, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for you to call me out. I'm ready to see how I can improve and how I can be better. And this really has been growing, even under behind closed doors. I'm not sure if you knew, but the Obama administration actually implemented this in the administration. He had everyone put their hands in and make a pact that they would be willing to allow somebody to call them out on an unconscious bias. And it worked so well that now Google is adopting this, and bigger companies are adopting this strategy. So it is sort of picking up.
It is. I didn't know that, but I think the reason people don't like it or they feel really uncomfortable is because then you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
And vulnerability for me equals communication.
Yes.
So we almost want the person vulnerable, because in vulnerability I can communicate my best truth.
I love that you said that. Well, a very big part that I talk about in my book is my, what happens when I get depressed. And I really talk about it in ways that I think a lot of people are uncomfortable to talk about. But what I realized was when I did talk about depression, how many people went, thank you, I feel exactly the same way. And one of the big turning points was when I was in the hospital, and I remember the doctor said, well, why do you not love yourself? And I said, who said anything about me not loving myself? He said, well, you're suicidal, you're depressed. And I said, yeah, because I'm in pain, but I don't not love myself. I just hurt a lot, and I want it to be over. And when I said that, I realized that depression it comes in many different forms, and it comes, it hurts, but a lot of times it isn't necessarily that we are angry or that we are that we don't like ourselves or that we don't value ourselves. It's the uncomfortableness, it's the discomfort with being vulnerable. Exactly what you said.
And I even believe, and most doctors won't like this, I even believe that doctors really don't know all the facets of depression. I certainly don't.
I do think that as a society, we've moved away from the importance of knowledge.
Yes.
Knowledge is power, and, even more powerful than money.
But knowledge is not willing to be shared freely.
Yes,
there's
it's not.
always a price tag on it.
Well, knowledge is also a threat to people who are in power.
Yes.
And that's become a problem. And we don't even realize how much we have been held away from important knowledge. But knowledge is what you're passionate about. It's what I'm passionate about. It's learning how we work and the minds and how we can be better with one another.
But just to give you a real easy example here, if you had sat yesterday with my father, he would have described all his children having perfect jobs except me. Because he would have said, yeah, and the little one, we don't really know what she does, but it's something what's that word?
Entrepreneurial.
But he would, just so you know. And so I think we're going away from that mindset, but we're dealing with that generation that did grow up with that, and that generation of parents that know that their own parents don't take them seriously if they don't have a 9-to-5 job with bonuses, with all the perks, whatever the perks are. You tell anyone you have a job without perks, and they say, why are you doing it?
Yeah, I mean, women have been questioned a lot. I was questioned a ton when I left my corporate job to start Our Milk Money, and I came home and everyone said, how are you going to make money? And I took real offense. What do you mean? How am I going to? I'm valuable, and I think what I did realize was that my husband said that to me, and it felt really unsupportive until I realized that men and women actually think very differently. They're built differently, and he wasn't saying I don't believe you can make money. What he was saying was, I have a responsibility to make sure that this family is provided for, and you just took an entire salary away, and now you're gambling and you're taking risks with the entire family's, lifestyle and everything. So I need to know, how do you plan on making money? He didn't know how to say it to me that way, and I only heard, you don't know how to make money, or you're not valuable enough. So again, it really is about stopping yourself and going, you know what, let me rephrase that, or let me at least find a better way to say that isn't so attacking.
Yeah. And I think this is where the young millennials, and I can vouch for that because I have a daughter in that age group, it's amazing when I see that. When my daughter walked away from her 9-to-5 job and started to become an entrepreneur, the yin and yang between partners, couples nowadays, they're willing to not even discuss money.
Well,
they're willing to discuss, what do you love doing?
One of the things that I also talk about in my book is that as a parent, we don't have to get it right by reading all the books and listening to what everybody else says. The best way to get it right is to go with your intuition. And when I did that, I realized that our children are our mentors. Like you're saying, your millennial daughter, my 11-year-old son, the one who gave me my run for my money and made me crazy and made me go into the hospital with a breakdown, my son has been my greatest mentor. And when we just sort of ease and flow into what it is they have to teach us, they've got it right.
Well, yeah, and vice versa. In other words, it's that mutual thing of they need to be able to look at, okay, from an experience standpoint, here are the good things that we can take out of this, but we have to be open enough to look at it and say, now what are the great things that I can take from this as well?
Absolutely. And giving them the empowerment of saying, I really appreciate your take on that. Or what do you think you should do if somebody's being bullied? My son was being bullied for a while, and I said, well, let's think about, I didn't go and rescue him. I said, okay, what do you think? Let's come up with a solution and let's keep trying new things. So I mentored him, but really in the end, he really showed that he was a problem solver.
Yeah, you helped him find the answer he needed.
Yeah.
I like that. You know what? We're going to take a break. But for everybody out there, stay with us. We are talking about You Got This. All right? We will be right back. You're listening to Answers for the Family.
Founded over 30 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield has continually focused on resolving issues that negatively impact families and businesses. Our signature therapeutic transportation service helps to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely transported to specialized schools, programs, and treatment centers with unsurpassed experience and success. We are supported by our full-service licensed investigation agency that has legally, professionally, and compassionately located hundreds of runaways and teens. We are experienced and qualified to help, offering solutions which may include referrals to our international network of top professionals in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, psychiatry, and investigations. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services and West Shield Investigations are the best solutions when your family is facing a personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 1-800-899-8585. Or visit our website at westshield.com. Thank you.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Answers for the Family, and we are talking with Ali Loprete, and the subject is You Got This. So also with us is Gabriella Von Ray. Gabriella, you have a question for our guest.
I would love to ask a question. No more breaks. Okay, Ali, how can children benefit from parents who read your book?
Well, first of all, this book is going to set the space for parents to get in a healthier mindset. So right there, you're going to be mirroring, you're going to be giving them your children the opportunity to learn from you. Our children come to this world as human beings with the right to experience their life. And when I say that, I mean they have the right to experience both ups and downs. And I think a lot of moms and dads panic when they think that their child's going to have a bad experience. But what my book is going to do is help you appreciate those times and help you use those, like we were saying earlier in the show, use those as opportunities to learn. Before the break, I had mentioned that my son, it was a couple years ago, he was experiencing some bullying. We sent him to a charter school. We thought it would be a good idea. Ended up not being a good idea. He left a very popular crowd at his old school and was angry at me, and these other kids were, he's a big personality, and they didn't really like it. And we kept trying different things, and I kept saying, try to make them laugh. And then I said, ignore them and go and find somebody else who needs you as a friend. And we tried that. We tried all these different things. And you know what? I finally threw up my hands, and I said, Braden, I'm on the radio, and I have like 6 million people that listen. We have a lot of fans, and I have some haters, too. And he said, yeah. And I said, yeah, I've got some people that call up, and they don't like me at all, and they're mean, and sometimes it really hurts. But let me tell you something, Braden, you have a big personality just like your mom. And I have a suspicion that you're probably going to be in a very big space when you're older. I think this is just preparing for you. I think you're going to have a lot more of this where you're headed, and this is just preparing you. And the way that it lifted him up He went, yeah, it is, and I'm gonna be a TV host, and I'm gonna be a filmmaker, and he somehow it elevated him to the point where he went back to school and laughed at these kids because they didn't know that he was gonna be a big famous filmmaker one day. And I thought that was such an interesting moment because my book explains how all you have to do to be a good parent is to be a good person yourself.
Absolutely. For me, it sounds like Braden took ownership of his uniqueness. Yeah. And I feel that when children do that, that's when they thrive. But the reason I was so passionate in asking you this question is because as I deal with children every day, it's one of the things that they keep saying to me is, we are the living example for them. And so just going to give a very easy example. If you tell no electronics at the dinner table and the father or the mother still sits under the table, this is what these children today ask me. So that's why I kind of asked this to you, because we almost need something for children when they see that unfairness to understand that they have another route that they can communicate instead of kicking, screaming, and saying, it's unfair, you do it.
Well, yeah, but I think this goes back to learning better communication, to saying, hey, Mom, I just have a question. I don't mean to insult you, but you told me that I'm not allowed to do this, but yet you're, and I appreciate it because it means that we can all engage, but if you're doing it, then we can't engage. So I think that arming our children with better communication to be able to call their parents out. And sometimes we have an answer. Sometimes, it's like my husband will say, you're right, and I'm making an exception for tonight because I'm waiting for a call. And it's really important for work. And it doesn't happen all the time, but I'm making an exception, and there are exceptions. And, and sometimes I think that that's okay, but when you have those constant communications and you're giving your children permission to be able to call their parents out without getting yelled at, that empowers them to speak out not only in their family, but in the world.
Absolutely. I think the listeners needed to hear that from you.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's a great question.
And speaking of the listeners, we have some listener questions and comments. This one comes from Pat in Phoenix, Arizona. It says, I'm so excited to gift your book to my goddaughter and two of her friends who are about to have their first babies between February and July of this year. Although they are extraordinary young women, they all have very busy lives and have the typical family challenges with either in-laws or stepchildren. It appears to be the perfect gift at the perfect time. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. You're welcome, Pat.
So, and then we have another, this one is a question that says, I was curious about the depression aspect of your discussion. A business coach, I think they mean as a business coach, never have I seen so many of my clients with various aged children express that they are struggling to keep a positive attitude at home and at work. They use the statements out of control and hopelessly stuck on the hamster wheel for why they are feeling depressed. Can you tell us how your book addresses this specific issue, as I would like to add it to my recommended materials? And this is from Joseph in Los Angeles. Oh, yes.
Oh, thank you, Joseph, for asking this question. First of all, what I have found is depression is an illness. It's an illness that can strike anyone at any time. I mean, none of us are immune to it. And just like any other illness, let's say you have a cold. If your immune system is down, that cold can turn into full-blown bronchitis, right? But if your immune system is up, you can kick that cold in a day or two, right? Yep. Well, when your depression is really just, it's something that happens when you've lost that control, like what he was saying. Depression very often comes when our mental immune system is down because we have so much anxiety, or because we're living in a constant state of toxic stress. And that is anxiety. That is feeling the pressure of society. That is feeling the pressure that you're doing something wrong, that you're not doing enough, that everybody is wanting something from you, and you're not, it's that, we all have these limiting set of beliefs and these voices in our head that tell us that we're not good enough. And this is why it takes different forms and shapes for everybody, because everybody everybody has different voices. Everybody has different ideas. What I found and what has helped me so much is learning to not just stay in a constant state of positivity, but recognizing that it's okay to feel overwhelmed, it's okay to feel sadness, it's okay to feel anger, and allowing myself to move through that. What I talk about in my book a lot is the power of surrender. I was so anxious before I got depressed that I wouldn't allow myself to feel angry or sad. I wasn't allowed. And now, if I'm angry or sad, I just sort of, we call it limp noodle in my family. Go limp noodle. Just allow the net of life, the powers that be, whatever spirituality that helps you. I feel that the universe sort of has my back. And if I can just go limp, usually it opens my mind enough to help me realize that there's a whole other scenario that I couldn't see because I was too tense and too stressed. So surrender has, and this has been proven by so many psychologists and doctors, that the power of surrender helps you heal physically. It helps you heal your mental state. And so if you can teach as a business coach your people, your clients, how to monitor that anxiety, you will prevent depression from coming about.
What I'm hearing too in what you're saying is people that bottle up all these emotions creates the beginning of the possibility of depression.
It wears on you. Yes, yeah. It's that toxic.
It's like a little
stress.
cold that just keeps nagging and nagging until the immune system can't. But then the
illness takes over. And I think that's the point where I was at, where I said all of my bag of tricks, I've got a happy bag of tricks, and my happy bag of tricks wasn't working, which is how I knew to say to my husband, my thoughts are not my own anymore. Now I need some help. And I was self-aware enough to know I need to go to the hospital. I need help.
Would you say this is more prevalent in women or men? I'm just curious.
I would guess that it's more prevalent in women. Women have been oppressed for generations. Women don't even realize how much anxiety and how much stress they take on. I'm not saying that men don't have stress. I've experienced it with my husband, but it takes on a different form. And I'm not as familiar with that. I think more people need to do research on men's depression and what form that takes.
I would have thought about men too, because if I look just at men in general, they've been taught not to cry. They've been taught, that they are the provider, whereas we're equal partners, a man and a woman. And so I feel that maybe we don't even know it yet about them.
I love that you brought this up, because one of the things that I'm really excited about learning about is, my husband is this really progressive, amazing feminist of a man, but even I'm seeing how difficult this whole movement has been for him. I see that stress of where's my place in this? Yes, I want women to have leadership roles and we want to give them power, but they're taking over, and what do I do with it? So there's this kind of struggle, this internal struggle, and I keep saying to him, we don't know your place in this world yet, but we're going to find it, because there is definitely a place for men in this. And I think that we all are at the precipice of something brand new. I mean, none of us have experienced what's happening in the world right now, so we all sort of have to just hold on to each other, grab hands, and go, here we go, let's try this. We're going to fail a lot, but we'll pick each other back up and we'll figure it out as we go. And the real basis for how we're going to get through this is constant communication with one another.
Absolutely.
No, I couldn't agree more. And one of the things, and I sort of believe in a pendulum theory, and whenever somebody starts talking about how horrible everything is, and I say, the beauty of that is that based on the pendulum theory, it means that when things get too far in one direction, people rise up from the other side and go, okay, that's it, I've had enough. And all of a sudden, and that's why we have so many more people coming out, speaking about things that are right, speaking out things that are mindful. So yes, I can see it's like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So I agree.
I absolutely agree, and I will say that our children are watching.
Yes.
And it is, seeing it through the eyes of my own children. They're excited about what's going on. I mean, they're like, what place do we have in all of this? And they're envisioning a future for themselves. So, it all sort of ties together.
Right. So, and I just looked at the clock. We are almost out of time. I want to hit two quick things real quick. And one is, what are some of the action items that our listeners can take right now to get themselves in better alignment?
Oh, better alignment. Well, I actually have, I wasn't even thinking to bring this up, but I actually have a free book online on my website. It's Loprete.com. And there's a book called The Art of Alignment. And you can download it for free. And what it does is it really helps moms especially, but I think anyone would benefit from it, is how to get yourself quickly out of a dark space and into a positive space. Because sometimes we can't think straight. We can't problem solve when we're in that state of toxic stress and anxiety. And what my book, and there's also a guided meditation. If you have 5 minutes, you can listen to the MP3. 5 minutes is hard to find for some moms, but if you can get into a closet or a bathroom and listen to the guided meditation, sometimes it can just snap you out of that dark space and into that open-minded space, more mindful awareness, and you can problem solve like nobody's business. And that's really when we feel so good about what we're capable of doing.
Right. And so I just want to share real quick with the listeners out there some of the ways in which you can get a hold of Allie. You can go to the website, which is just Loprete.com, and that's Loprete.com. Go to ourmilkmoney.com. Since I gained information on Allie, I went on there, I joined. And you can go to, thislittleparent.com. Allie, is there any other ways that it's a good way for them to either how to get your book or how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, there's a website to get my book directly. It's called YouGotThisBookSeries.com. But also, I have over 400 hours of radio time where we're talking about every topic you can think about, dealing with advocating for parents, how you can use all of these resources to help you as a parent, to help your children. ThisLittleParent.com was the radio show that I did for 7 years on iHeartRadio, and there's so much good information there.
Well, I just want to thank you. I wish we had at least another 2 hours because we could keep going. So as soon as you have something else that you're bringing out, let us know. We would love to have you back anytime. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Gabriella, thank you as well for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Now, for anybody out there that was listening, if they want to get a hold of you, the best way to do it?
Well, the best way to do it is not to type my Dutch name. So just do Gabriella.global, and that's my website, and all the social media is on there, or otherwise use my hashtag #DareToBeKind.
All right. So everybody, please be sure to put us on your calendar and tune in next week when our guest will be Catherine Amman. She is the author of Tantric Dating, and our co-host will be Christine Baumgardner, founder of The Perfect Match. So let's end the show with, again, your hashtag, Gabriella.
#DareToBeKind.
And please, everybody, do that. Have a great week. Bye now.
You're listening to Answers for the Family with Alan Cardoze and Matt Polachek, only on LA Talk Radio.